We'll get started right at 6:05 in about 5 minutes from now. We'll get started in about 5 minutes from now. 6:05. Good morning, Francis. I think we've got everybody in class today. That's awesome. All right, let's see what time it is. Couple minutes. We'll wait just a couple more minutes and we'll get started. All right. All right, about another 1 minute and we'll get started. All right, it is 6:05. Good morning, everybody. Sorry I was not there on Friday. I came into work and I started feeling kind of bad. I started sweating and having like really kind of stomach cramps. So I went home around 6 o'clock in the morning on Friday. So my apologies, but I'm feeling better. I know Chef Scott was there, and he, I think, helped y'all out on Friday. But anyway, sorry, I was not feeling so good, but now I'm feeling all right. All right, so let's talk about what's growing on today. Let's see. Oh, hold on a second. Let me see if I can minimize this so I can see it a bit better. All right, so we got hybrid classes. Remember, you need to fill out the daily wellness checks. You've got to wear masks mandatory on campus at all times. Be in full uniform and must be on class, in class at all time, on time. The doors might be locked. Again, we play that by ear, depending on what the deal is. Let's see. Hold on, let me see if I can move this. There we go. All right, uniform policy. Here we go. Shoes, piercings, watches, rings, false eyelashes, fingernails, fingernail color, all of that sort of stuff. Just be aware of that and just kind of watch out on that. Remember, check your email daily. Please just check it daily because I know Chef Robin sends stuff to people occasionally. So just please be aware of that. Surf Save Makeup on Saturday the 8th, May the 8th. All right. All right, let's see. You want to sign up and pay? Let's see. Email Chef Raf. Here's his email address. I will see if I can. Oops, sorry. Gonna see if I can copy his email, and I will put that in the chat just in case anybody needs to do a makeup surf save. If you need to do it, actually, I'm probably going to be there because I need to do a surf save because I'm recertifying for my certified executive chef certification. So I know I have to do a new surf save for that. So I will probably be there as well. So if you need anything, please go do that, and you can pay Miss Mary and all of that good stuff. Portal issues, go to the Zen desk or call this phone number, one of the two. They will help out. Free tutoring is available. I'll check it out, especially I would check it out before your if you have any gen ed classes or anything like that coming up soon, general education like math or any of those, I would check it out a little ahead of time just because you could use that tutoring for this as well. Talk Campus. Here, Talk Campus is a great tool for anybody that needs any sort of assistance in mental health, you name it. I think they even do legal advice as well. It is an app on either, I think, Android or Apple products. All you have to do is download it. I think you type in Talk Campus, and there you have it. It's a great resource. I know we pay for some of this, so if it is a paid kind of a thing, so we pay for it, so it's better than like a free thing. So there are licensed therapists, licensed certified therapists, and all of that sort of stuff. From what I've heard, the faculty cannot use it; it's only for students. Anyway, so it's something, and you talk to real people, or you're messaging real people. I don't think it's AI or any of that sort of stuff. So good thing. Let's see, we've got some holidays. May 14th, no school. Memorial Day, May 31st. No school, January the 5th. All of that, so going down. So if you want to take a photo of this, it's a great opportunity to take a photo so you know what your holidays are. We got some special days. Here we go. National Garlic Day, April 19th. Is that today? Wow, I'm gonna have to make some garlic. National Cheddar Friday, Tea Day, Jelly Bean Day, Cherry Cheesecake Day. Huh. Pig in a Blanket Day. Wow, that sounds awesome. And then National Pet Day is the 25th. So those are the days. Here you go. Hulu, you get free, or almost free. Sorry, not free, but almost free Hulu. So $2 a month. And you know what I just did? If you don't have Amazon Prime, I actually set up my daughter with it's called a Student Prime. If you have a school email on a .edu email, and I think everybody does, you can create a Amazon Prime email, or get Amazon Prime Student, and it is like really cheap. And you still get all the video and the storage and all of that sort of stuff, but it's like, I think $6. I mean, it's like ultra cheap. So I just set that up for my oldest daughter. So so if you want to, student discounts are awesome. You use it when you're a student for sure. So always do that. Let's see, we've got a if you have a new address or anything, you can, I'm gonna post this link in the chat as well. So if you need to change your phone number or address or any of that sort of stuff, please use that link. Any assistance. Now, again, I would say for mental health, I would say do not use this number. I mean, you can do it, but I think you would get better service if you do that Talk Campus. But we also have food assistance phone numbers, mortgage and assistant, and rent assistance, utility, COVID testings for sure, and flu vaccine, and just vaccines in general. I would, if you're wanting to get a vaccine or something like that, we could at least get you a good phone number for that. If you're wanting any financial aid questions or any money questions, these are the two individuals that you would contact. So those are the people you would contact for any sort of financial aid assistance. Again, CDC says 6 feet apart. Actually, I think it is now 3 feet apart, I believe. I think now, not 6 feet. So I would say 6 to 3 feet. Always cover your mouth, clean all the surfaces, wash your hands always. Stay at home if you're feeling sick. Don't touch your eyes and wear a mask. Get a COVID vaccine. Add another layer. There we go. Add another layer. Get a COVID vaccine. CDC.gov. All right, to make sure that the surfaces are clean, you can use I think that's a little excessive, a half a cup of bleach to 1 gallon of water. I think that might be a little much, but I would cut it down just a slight amount. But sorry, I think I muted myself. But you want to let it sit for at least 5 minutes and let it air dry. This lady, very, very important lady. She can help you out on any job listings, anything like that. She can help you out. She is someone that I would always keep her email address handy, because she's the one that answers all the phone calls. If a company needs looking for people to hire, they're going to call her up first and at the school, and she's the one that knows all when it comes to anybody that needs a job for extern or just regular job in general. Excuse me. Let's see, we got some featured employers right here. Anybody want me to put their email address or this email address up? If you want me to, I can put it in the chat line. Another featured employer. Let's see, what is this? Immediate job openings for pastry and culinary positions. Oh, career fair. There we go. Look at that. All right. That's awesome, man. So there we have it. Big old career fair going on. University of Texas, a few other places that need jobs or that are looking for someone to hire. All right, quote of the week. Every new day is a new opportunity for success. For sure. I completely agree on that. Let's see. Something healthy, so that's funny. All right. So all right, where does this coffee come from? Let's see let's open up the chat. Ethiopia, Brazil, I'm gonna say, there you have it, Ethiopia. Bam. Who was it? All right, there we go. Bam and bam. Let's see. All right, all right, all right. Let me stop sharing for a second. Hold on. I'm using one screen today because Chef Raph, one of the other chefs, stole my extra monitor this morning. So he just got here a little earlier than I did. So he took my monitor. So let's see. So let's talk about last week. I thought last week was really good. A lot of good cooking last week. I saw a lot. I saw a lot of, you know, first of all, good cooking, good sanitation. Practices. I saw a lot of y'all, with first of all, clean uniforms, especially my online folks with y'all taking selfies and stuff. I mean, last 6 weeks, I had more dirty uniform pictures of people taking the pictures of their dirty uniform and posting it up. I I absolutely love y'all in clean uniforms. Thank you. Uh, Keeping sanitary, very, very important. And then just cooking methods. I saw a lot of great cooking methods, and I saw a lot of creativity in a lot of people online and or online and hybrid. I think it's really nice to see all kind of venturing out a little bit and trying some new things and trying new played up presentations and new new and different because again this is where you should try the new and different in the school, right? While you're in school, try new things, try different things. If you think, oh well, what would happen if I do it this way? Well, let's try it, right? I mean, all if it screws up, it screws up. You kind of you learn something, right? So I think it's so important to make sure that you don't you don't kind of follow the past. Sometimes you kind of go off and do your own thing a little bit because that's how we learn and how we kind of get things in our memory and I think it's very important. Like I mean, the barbecue was a great example of people just kind of doing their own thing a little bit. And, there was different, flavors, different, styles, different this, that, and the other. And I think that's so important because that's what you're kind of creating your own style, your own kind of creativity. And I think that's so important, especially in the food industry and being a chef. You need to have that kind of let's try this, why not, or whatever else. And I think y'all are getting that basis down and that thoughts down of let's it's not a big deal if you screw up something, right? We're not heart doctors, right? If you're a heart doctor, I understand, if you screw up something, you're going to kill somebody, right? But here, I mean, just playing with different flavors, with different textures, all of those things, I think is so important. So y'all are doing a really good job. I just wanted to make sure y'all knew that. I think it's great to see. This morning I was sitting looking at pictures of people's food online. People, I think y'all are doing a wonderful job. So keep up the good work, please. So let's get our party started on talking about. Let me share my screen. Hold on. All right. So anybody ever made chimichurri?
I have.
Yes, chef.
Yeah. So chimichurri is kind of one of those things where uh, could be a little spicy, depending on what it is. But we're going to be doing churrasco with chimichurri, basically beef with chimichurri and French fries. So let me hold on with one screen. I'm not too savvy. Do y'all see the recipe? Okay, good. Thank you, Tim. All right, so we have skirt steak, we have salt and pepper, and that's pretty much all that we need for the meat. Let's talk about the meat. Um, First of all, the skirt steak needs to be trimmed and cleaned. You want to trim any what I call silver skin. And when I talk about silver skin, that's a elastin or uh, it's something that doesn't ever break down. It doesn't, if you're going to chew on it and chew on it and chew on it, it's very tough and chewy. So we need to remove that elastin. It's kind of so, and other people call it silver skin. Silver skin, it's kind of silvery or shiny. You need to remove all of that because also it's going to make it tough to chew. And then sometimes elastin or it will make your like steaks curl up or kind of like it's almost similar to when we were taking the back part of the ribs from the ribs when we were smoking them, that little silver skin off of the bones. We just need to kind of clean any of the silver skin off. It doesn't obviously skirt steak doesn't have bones, but it does have the silver skin. And fat is good, but too much fat or not good fat. So you want to kind of trim the fat off a little bit. And a lot of times I use a little bit of olive oil or some sort of oil, and I just very lightly rub both sides of that down. Then I sprinkle salt and pepper on it, and that helps to keep that salt and pepper from falling off that oil. Does that make sense? So you just want to oil the meat up just a little bit, just a very light amount. We don't want it to be like oozing with oil. But I usually rub it down and just put some salt and pepper on there, and we'll grill it. We'll be grilling it tomorrow. If you don't have a grill, um, you can sear it, in a pan, in on like a cast iron pan, and then finish it in the oven. But the goal is to get a good Maillard reaction, and let me show you. Let me see if I can pull up a picture. Did y'all see the pictures? Okay, good. Sorry, I have to ask just because I'm only using one screen and I'm used to using two. So what I'm wanting you to do is, if you don't have a grill, I want you to like sear the outside, so it should have a good Maillard reaction, kind of a brown. And this is a good example of if it was, you could sear it in a pan and then finish it in the oven. But here is another, you know, you've got your nice grilled, kind of charred, got some good grill marks or good Maillard reaction, and then you got your chimichurri sauce kind of hanging right on the side. You know, you'll kind of nappe it on top, and then have probably some off to the side, something like this. have a little chimichurri off to the side and have it squared up like this. Now, the most important thing, guys, is when you slice this meat, and I'll talk about it. You want to slice against the grain. You don't want to slice with the grain, and that is so important because if you slice with the grain, very, very chewy, hard to eat, hard to chew. If you slice against the grain, it's a little easier to eat and less tough. So that's kind of what it looks like. Let me go back to the recipe. So you've got your skirt steak, salt and pepper. So any questions on just seasoning up the meat, cleaning it and seasoning it? You're going to grill it or sear it, whatever else. We're going to cook it to where it's kind of a medium to medium rare. So I would say medium rare to medium, somewhere in that area. The reason why I always ask you to do a medium to medium rare, because that is the hardest one to do. Because medium rare and medium, those are, because well done is easy. You just cook it until it's completely well done. Rare is really easy. You just kind of cook it. So medium rare to medium is the hardest temperature. Plus, you don't want to overcook this meat because if you do, it's very, very chewy. And we're going to grill it. We're going to let it sit and rest. Very important to let it sit and rest because if not, when you slice it, a lot of that juices will come out and it's going to be very, very liquidy on your plate. And that liquid's going to look like blood. It's myoglobins, or it's basically kind of reddish, but it's not really blood. It's colored water in a way because we've already bled the animal out completely. When you slaughter the animal, there's no more blood in that animal, but it's one of those things where it has that look of blood. So a lot of people don't like that. So, and we're going to slice it on a hard bias, and you want to slice it kind of what I call thin to win. You want it nice and even and consistent. And important, the one thing I don't like is when you slice it and you put it in different sections, or you slice it and you got one piece here, one piece here. You want it to kind of flow. So if you're going to slice it, I would kind of keep it in kind of a line like this, or you fan it out like a smiley face or something like that. The most important thing is you never do a sad face, a frown. So you never want to kind of go kind of like upside down, like a frown, because when you're plating up food, it should be facing the customer. You don't want that kind of the butt ends kind of facing the customer. That's why you kind of fan it out like a smiley face. Now I think there is no recipe for the chimichurri, right? So I mean, there is no recipe in here for chimichurri, but we'll talk about the chimichurri in just a second. But any questions on grilling the piece of meat? Okay. For the French fries, my suggestion for the French fries, I would do them, do a small French fry. Let me see if, like my suggestion is smaller French fries, something like this. I would not do like big steak fries. My suggestion, no steak fries. If you have a mandolin, you could do like shoestring potato, like if you have a real thin, like you can like use the mandolin and slice it really thin and do like a shoestring French fries, really, really thin. You know, that would be nice. I would just suggest not big, clunky, big pieces. You want more like smaller, finer, smaller French fries for this. And we need, after you cut your French fries, you're going to need to blanch them. You blanch them in oil. You always blanch them in oil. You will cut your French fries. Then you put your French fries in a, you want your French fries cut. Then you are going to get the fryer or grease. It's going to be around 100 or 200, 275, somewhere, no more than 300. You want it lower than 300. You're going to cook it the first time. You're going to cook it, and it's going to be nice and done on the inside, but no color on the outside. So just make sure it's nice and soft and malleable on the inside. Then you are going to let it sit. Sometimes you can, a lot of times you'll see recipes say stick it in the freezer. The reason why they say to stick it in the freezer is so where when you the starches will kind of freeze on the outside, and it'll give it nice and kind of a crispy golden brown look to it when you fry it the next time. But no matter what, just I would say make your French fries consistent sizes. That's all I care about is I really want consistent sizing. That's very important to me, because then if it's inconsistent, then the cooking of it, one's going to be overdone, one's going to be underdone. So you just need to really make sure that you watch that and manage that. So let's talk about what is in chimichurri. So someone tell me what, let's see, we've got shallots are finely, shallots or onions finely chopped. This one's got, well, let me see what our recipe. Sorry, let me make sure. I want to give you, everybody get the. What day is that? Sorry, day 12.
It should be day 11, Chef. Or no, sorry, today's day 11. So day 12. You're right.
Thank you. No, you're fine. I don't even see chimichurri. All right, so so let's just do. All right, so here's kind of what chimichurri looks like. It's got herbage. So you have olive oil, red wine vinegar, parsley, garlic, red chili flakes, oregano. It could be dried or fresh, and salt. and pepper. Okay, so the spice comes from the red chili flakes, so the red pepper flakes. The herbage is the chopped parsley, the vinegar. I'm sorry, the chopped parsley is the herb, and I will make sure that we have, instead of dried oregano or any of that sort of stuff, I'll see if we can get some fresh oregano, and you're just going to chop it all up. You're gonna mix in all the ingredients. You know, you're gonna chop up the parsley. My suggestion would be finely chop the parsley, and then and finely chop the oregano, and then mix that together. Then slowly add your vinegar, your oil, and your salt and your garlic. I would suggest pasting your garlic. No, you really don't want any big chunks of garlic in it. I would paste it up really fine. No one wants a big old chunk of garlic in there. So my suggestion would be paste the garlic, and you're just going to combine everything in there, and it should have kind of a greasy look to it. Kind of, you know, it should have this kind of look. All right, now the amounts, you know, you need more herbs than anything else. So my suggestion is chop up, you know, the parsley and the oregano, and then add the oil and everything else. You just don't want it to be too you know, you want that oiliness a little bit. You want and I'll show you, and here's some pictures of some, right? So it's chunky, but it's oily as well. This one, you can see the onions are shallots they use. It's a little big. I prefer things a little finer chopped when it comes to this, because chimichurri, I want a good kind of all the flavors should be kind of all combined and all in one, instead of kind of just, I've got big chunks of shallots here, so I have a chunky, you know, a strong flavor of shallot. So just manage that. But you can, I've seen it put in a Roku or a blender or whatever else. My suggestion, just do it by hand. But any questions on that? If you want to, you can write down this recipe right here, or take a photo of it. This is a pretty basic chimichurri, and I'm probably gonna do this one.
Can you post that link in chat?
Yeah. You know what? I'm gonna go back to here and let me know if that opens up for you, or it goes to it, so everybody has it. But that's the one I'm gonna probably use. You can use it for many things. I mean, chicken is I do a chimichurri chicken at home that I kind of like to do. So, but that is a good recipe.
Hey, chef,
Yes.
what's the difference between a chimichurri and a gremolata?
Gremolata has well, a couple things. Gremolata has it looks almost the same, but Gremolata has a lot of lemon juice and lemon zest, and it has anchovies typically, pasted anchovies. Gremolata I don't know if gremolata, I don't think it has red pepper flakes either. So gremolata is basically anchovies, garlic, parsley, olive oil, and I think I put usually a little bit of vinegar in there. But that's kind of usually what's in the gremolata. So it's a little different and the reason why, and a gremolata is usually done for like like a shank, a veal shank, or like ossobuco typically, and it's very acidic or acidy because ossobuco is very, you have usually bone marrow with the ossobuco, and that bone marrow is very fatty, and that real acidic acid from that lemon juice and lime or lemon zest helps cut that fattiness of the ossobuco. So
Gotcha.
that's kind of what the ossobuco, or why you use it for the ossobuco.
Heard.
Yeah, no worries.
Cool, thank-
But but it looks almost similar, you know, without the red pepper flakes. But it's more acidic than anything else. So any other questions on so for the, sorry, going back to the recipe, you've got to, so you got to kind of clean the meat, you got to season the meat, and you got to cook the meat. That's, you can either cook it. I would suggest if you don't have a grill at home, I would pan sear it. Get a skillet, if you have a cast iron skillet or a saute pan, whatever else. Get a little bit of oil into the pan. Get that pan nice and hot. You get a good Maillard reaction, good sear on one side, good sear on the other. Then I would stick it in the oven and cook it until it's done, or until it's like medium rare or medium. Or you can cook it on the stovetop. You would just have to, after you sear it, turn down the heat and just kind of try to cook it that way. Either or on the grill. Okay. Then you've got French fries. You're going to have to blanch. So the people online and in hybrid, my suggestion at some point getting that, at the earlier stages of prep, I would go ahead, cut your French fries, blanch off your French fries, so where then you can turn up your fryer or turn up your grease, so whenever you're ready, you can fry it immediately. But that's the French fries and the steak, and then you have the chimichurri. Any questions on the chimichurri? The chimichurri should kind of look like this. It should have a good amount of oil in it, right? I mean, that's kind of, if you look at all those photos, it's very kind of oily and all of that. So just kind of, make sure you kind of, it should have this appearance. So, but that is what the chimichurri should look like. Any questions on that? Cool. And I can't see y'all, so like I don't have a video, all the boxes of y'all. So if you need anything, just speak up, because right now I can't, with one screen, I can't see all the other, my Zoom side. All right, so let's see, here we go. So now we're going to talk about empanadas. Okay. Guys, my suggestion for you is to maybe my online people, you might want to make the pie dough today. I would say my on ground people, we need to make the pie dough immediately when you get in, because you got to make the pie dough first, and then you've got to make and then you've got to let it sit and chill. This, let's look at, I'm going to go back in time real quick, and we're going to go to, I think, what was it, day 1? Didn't it tell us to make a PIDO? All right, we're going to use it. Please do not use the PIDO recipe that is on for tomorrow's production. If you could, please go to the Midwest day 2 and use this PIDO recipe that is on the Midwest. And I will, and it is 9 ounces of flour, 6 ounces of butter, 3 ounces of water, a half a teaspoon of salt, and a half an ounce of sugar. Okay. I want you to use that recipe compared to this recipe right here, where this recipe asks for 3 cups of flour and 6 cups of butter. Do you see that? That's a lot of butter, and that's too much pie dough. Does that make sense? So please do not use where it says this pie dough recipe. Please do not use this pie dough recipe. Please go to day 2 where you have this pie dough recipe. Everybody see that? Yes? Cool.
Sorry, yes, sir.
All right, cool. Cool. I just want to make sure, because if you do the other recipe, it's not going to work out properly. Okay. But the filling, you can use this recipe for the filling, and the filling is just basically peanut butter, banana, and cinnamon. So what you're going to do, well, first of all, you're going to make pie dough, right? You're going to make pie dough. You're going to let it sit. You need to let it sit for, I would say, maybe, at least 15 to 20 minutes before you roll it out. Okay. After you make it, you need to let it sit about 15, 20 minutes before you roll it out. Once you roll it out, you're going to cut it into, I would cut it into little rounds. I will, if you have a mason jar, use the lid. You could use a mason jar lid to cut rounds out, and that's going to be for your empanada. Okay. Once you cut the rounds out, then you'll have to make the filling. The filling is peanut butter, banana, and cinnamon. So you're going to take a banana and you're going to use a fork or something, and you're going to start just mashing it up. You need just mash up a banana. Then you're going to put peanut butter in with that banana and just kind of mix it up. You can put a little cinnamon in there. Please be don't put a buttload of cinnamon in there. Just put a little bit in there and adjust the seasoning. This doesn't have any salt. I do like to sprinkle a little bit of salt in this in it. So and again, you want this, there is no amounts, right? You don't want it too peanut buttery and you don't want it too banana-y. So you need to find that happy medium. So you get the banana, mash it up, and then you start adding the bananas start adding the peanut butter in there. You sprinkle a little cinnamon in there. You could, and if you don't want to, like my on ground people or online people, if you want to fill it with something else, you know, you can fill it with whatever, as long as it's you know, we're doing an empanada, and so I want a sweet empanada. But you know, you could fill it with cream cheese, you can fill it with, you know, you know, apple pie filling, you could fill it with cherry, you know, I mean, you could do it with anything. But we've got the peanut butter, the banana and cinnamon. I put a little bit of salt, and you know, depending on how old the banana is, I like to use an old banana because that gives a little more sweetness. If it's not an old banana, I usually sprinkle in just a little bit of sugar in there to just kind of balance that sweet and all of that, kind of balance it out. So once I have that, I get a small amount. And guys, we're really only we're only putting maybe a half a teaspoon or just a touch more in that empanada, depending on the size of your empanada, right? And then you're gonna take that circle, you're gonna fold it over, and you're gonna kind of crimp the sides. And I will show you what an empanada looks like. Here empanadas right here. All right. Typically, there's a couple of different ways. You can use a fork to kind of seal the edges. I also, one thing that is not on this recipe, you need one egg cracked, beaten up, basically make an egg wash. You need kind of a egg with a little bit of water, kind of beaten up to where it's not snotty and slimy. And what I usually do is I will, before I fold my two ends together, I will kind of put a little egg around the sides to help seal it. Then I use a fork, or you can kind of crimp it like this. One of the two, you can fork it or crimp it. But no matter what, once you kind of crimp it and or fork it, I always will brush a little bit of egg wash right on top to give it kind of a nice look. And then you can sprinkle a little like castor sugar or coating sugar. This looks like sugar maybe in the raw, something like that on it. But then you're going to bake it. You know, we're going to bake it. You can fry it, but I typically bake it. But once it's baked, then you just plate it up. This one, you know, like you can see, they dusted a little powdered sugar on there. You know, the world is your oyster when it comes to whatever you want to put on there. But it should be nice and golden brown and crispy. Any questions about the empanada?
No, chef.
All right, so
Chef,
yes.
on the empanada, do you vent it at all?
No, you don't.
It's-
Most pies you do vent or have a little kind of gap to it. A lot of the times now, like this one, it looks like this empanada has a little like vent, maybe right there. But most of the time, you don't see a vent on empanadas. But I mean, here's an empanada that's kind of, this is a bread empanada.
Yeah.
But most of the time you don't see it vented.
So they look very similar to hand pies
Yes.
from like from England or like
Yeah.
meat and potatoes and whatnot. So that's what I was.
Exactly. Exactly. So it's almost like ham pies for sure. For sure. But you typically don't vent it, but that's a great question. Thank you. All right. Now, also, we need to make strudel dough. Very important, but we're going to take a break right now, and we will go over the strudel dough in about 10 minutes from now. We good?
Heard, Chef.
Cool. So we'll start
Yes,
in
chef.
about 10 minutes. All right, let's get this party started. Let's talk about now. So tomorrow we're gonna make the chimichurri. We're gonna make the French fries. We're gonna make the empanadas, but also we need to make the apple strudel. Excuse me, I've got the hiccups. The strudel dough. So here is what a strudel looks like. Here's the strudel. Different styles. You've got braided.
Hey, Chef, we can't see your screen.
Oh, my apologies. Thank you. Sorry. That is. Let me get back to where to share. Oh, yeah, there we go. Thank you so much for letting me know I was not sharing. All right. Now, do y'all see it?
Yes, Chef.
All right, cool. All right, so we have so empanadas. You have different styles, or I'm sorry, not empanadas, strudels. You have different styles. You have some that are braided, and let me see if I can find a. Here's like a braided one right here. Just a traditional one that's kind of rolled out and folded up. So that is a style as well. Sometimes people will vent it like this, so it doesn't. So the moisture will have somewhere to go. But that's what a strudel looks like. Now we're going to talk about making the dough. Hold on, let me find the strudel. So tomorrow we've got to make the dough. The dough consists of 3 egg yolks, 4 cups of all-purpose flour, a cup of milk, butter, room temp, 6 ounces of butter room temp, and I will make sure I have room temp butter sitting out, salt, and sugar. You're going to mix the flour, the 3 cups of flour and the butter, salt and sugar. You'll add the yolks and mix by hand, then add the milk, combine, and it's going to look like a shaggy mass, kind of like making pie dough in a way. Or kind of like I would say not pie dough, kind of like biscuits. Kind of gets all shaggy and kind of clumpy, but then you're gonna kind of gradually add the last cup of flour. You're gonna finish it with finish the dough until it's nice and smooth and elastic. You want it nice and smooth. You want it very elastic like. The most important thing is you make this the day ahead of time. And I'm sorry, my wife wasn't feeling well last night, so she was up and down. So I was staying up, or I stayed up a little later. So sorry for my yawning. But the most important thing is making this dough a day ahead of time. If you do not make this dough a day ahead of time, what happens is that dough, when you roll it up and make the actual strudel, the strudel dough is very tough and chewy. So you need to make sure you make it ahead of time. So very, very important to do this ahead of time. Just very important. In any questions, I mean, it's a pretty easy recipe. You just kind of mix up the dough. It says divide it in 4 to 5 pieces. Now, I do not do it that way. What I usually do is that's for braiding purposes if you want to braid it. Only if you want to braid the dough, you would do it in that way. But where I'm gonna just do a traditional, just roll it all out and just make the dough without braiding it. I'm not gonna be braiding it tomorrow. So now this dough might, you could, if you would actually, you might need all of that dough. So sometimes depending, maybe at home for home use, or if you're doing it at home, maybe you can cut this recipe, the dough recipe, in half. I would say if you're doing it here at the school, you'll have enough room. The dough might be a little bit bigger because when I make mine, it's a full sheet pan, and a full sheet pan usually does not fit in your home ovens. So you could divide this in half if you would like, and you can do a smaller one if you would like to do that. But you would just have to divide this recipe in half. But you need to make the dough tomorrow. Very, very important. Very important to make the dough tomorrow. All right. The filling, I'm going to just go ahead and talk about the filling. It's basically apple pie dough, apple pie filling. In a way, you have Granny Smith apples, you have butter, you have panko breadcrumbs, you have pecans. If you don't want pecans, you do not have to have pecans. You don't have to have nuts in it. If you don't want nuts, don't put nuts in it. That's totally fine. You have cinnamon and sugar and golden raisins. If you don't want to put your raisins in there, you do not have to put the raisins in there. But what I usually do is I will soak my raisins. I usually soak them in some sort of alcohol, or I get them soaking in hot water to kind of plump them up, to make them nice and juicy instead of dried. So either I soak them in alcohol, I soak them in or a simple sugar, kind of an alcohol flavor, like amaretto would be nice. You can have a little amaretto in there, or you can, a rum or brandy, or or just a little warm water so they plump up, so they're not really dry, whatever. But you're going to basically cut your apples into small pieces. Now, let me show you the picture again. So here is, pictures of an apple strudel, right? Now, look at the size of the apples, okay? Think about when you cook the apples, because you're going to cook them you're going to cook the mix ahead of time, and then you're going to cook it again in the oven, right? So you're going to make this mixture. And you're going to kind of cook it in a saute pan. The apples are going to soften, and then they're going to maybe a little soften when you're baking it as well. But the most important thing is making sure that your apples don't turn into applesauce, if that makes any sense. I don't want you to overcook your apples so much where it turns into applesauce, right? So you need to peel. So what we're going to do is you're going to peel and dice your apples. I would say medium dice. You've got butter, you got panko, you've got the pecans and all of that. Well, if you are using pecans, and the pecans are not toasted, what I usually do is I'll get a little bit of butter, get my pecans, toast my pecans in a saute pan, a little salt with my pecans, and then once my pecans are kind of toasted, I take them off, and they should be, if they're not chopped up, you should chop them up. But toast them, and I take it out of the pan. The reason why I take it out of the pan, I don't want to burn it or anything like that. So I'm going to take it out. Then I will put in my apples and kind of cook my apples a little bit. I want to kind of heat them up and cook them with a little of that butter. Get some salt, some pepper, or not pepper, but salt in there. And then at that point, I usually sprinkle some sugar. I put in my raisins. If their raisins have alcohol in it, I try to cook it a little bit so it's not raw alcohol flavor. If anybody's ever had kind of a raw alcohol flavor in a dessert or anything like that, it's kind of not the best flavor because it's so strong. So you want to just make sure you manage that. And once your apples are done, I'm basically going to combine everything back in, mix it up, and let it sit and cool. Okay, so I'm going to let it sit and cool. At that point, I'm going to start stretching out my strudel dough. Now, guys and girls, please, I would watch a quick video on how to do strudel dough. I'm going to show you, but you need to use the back of your hands, and we're going to roll the dough out as thin as possible with a rolling pin. Then we're going to take, once it's as thin as we can get with a rolling pin, then we're going to get your hands underneath it, and we're going to start stretching it. We want to be able to basically, if you know, here's a Ziploc bag, I want to be able to see my hand kind of through that dough type of deal. It should be that thin. You're almost kind of making phyllo dough in a way. If anybody ever has used phyllo dough, that's kind of what we're trying to do it as thin as possible. Now, with that being said, sometimes your fingers, when you're rolling it out, it's hard to roll, after the dough is all laid out on a sheet on your table, it's sometimes very hard to roll the dough up like this, in this kind of shape, with it being very thin. Now, with that being said, what I usually do is I get a tablecloth. If you don't have a tablecloth, a bed sheet works really well. You lay a bed sheet down on your table, and then you put flour on the bed sheet, and then you start rolling out your dough on that bed sheet. So when you're having to roll it up, I take the bed sheet or the tablecloth, and I kind of use that as to kind of help roll up my strudel. I would suggest watching a video on it. I'm gonna show you how to do it, but it is something that you need to be very careful with. And every time I roll it up, because I'm gonna kind of roll it here, and then I don't know if y'all can see. Hold on, can y'all see this plastic bag that I have in my hand?
Yes, Chef.
All right, so once you so the pie filling is kind of right, or the strudel filling is here. I'm gonna kind of roll it once, then I'm gonna get a brush, and I'm gonna brush it down this kind of top part with butter, and then I sprinkle a little bit of panko breadcrumbs on there or sugar, and then I roll it again, and then I brush a little bit of butter, and then I sprinkle a little breadcrumbs, and then I kind of roll it up so where it's kind of this kind of shape, and then I will brush the outside well with butter, and then you can sprinkle a little bit of like coarse sugar on there or whatever else, and then we're going to stick it in a oven, and we're gonna bake it for about until golden brown, whatever that is, because the pie filling is kind of par cooked, right? So once once the outside is nice and golden brown, then the inside should be ready. But 350 degrees, and I would rotate that pan in the oven. Excuse me, so where you get even browning to it. Any questions on that? We good on the pita or strudel?
I have a question, Chef.
Yes, ma'am.
You were talking about soaking the raisins in like an alcohol or something. So I have Crown Apple. Do you think that would be too sweet?
Could you say what do you have again?
Crown Apple?
No, it would be fine. What you could do is you could take some of that, just like a little bit, and you can mix that with like warm water, and you can just kind of let it sit. If it's too sweet, but I think maybe if you get like a half a shot and you put your raisins in there, I think it'll be fine.
Okay, perfect.
I think it would taste good with that for sure.
That's what I was thinking. Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. No worries. All right, so we're done with the strudel. So let's talk about the cabbage rolls. Okay, so let's talk about that. Well, we have, let me show you what a cabbage roll looks like. Here are some cabbage rolls right here. Okay, now I'm going to show you two different types of cabbage rolls. You have this type right here. Do you see that the filling is a little loose? It's not as kind of a solid mass. And this one is more of a solid mass. Does everybody kind of see the difference of those two?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Now, this one right here, this cabbage roll, the meat was not cooked ahead of time. It was raw. So like you basically made kind of a raw sausage or raw filling, and you put the raw meat into the cabbage, and you bake the cabbage, and that cooks the meat. So it kind of has more of a look like a sausage or like a meatball, if everybody sees that. And then compared to this, where it's a little looser, and it's more crumbly. And if you kind of see the kind of crumbly look. Now this one, the meat was cooked ahead of time, and everything was kind of cooked ahead of time and then put into that cabbage, rolled up and kind of cooked again, or kind of finished the cooking process, or kind of cooking so it's two different styles of thought to on how to make this cabbage roll. Now I'm going to leave that up to you. Okay, if you want to cook the meat ahead of time and kind of mix everything together, and then have the cooked meat you put into the cabbage, and then you kind of roll it up, or you have the raw meat and you kind of mix it up like you're making a sausage or a meatball, and you put it into that cabbage roll and you roll it up, and then you bake it that way. Now, you know, the only difference is the one that's in the raw state and it cooks in the oven is going to look more kind of a more like meatloaf or meatball kind of like, compared to the looser packed one, or the loosely one, the loose kind of falling apart one. So I'm going to leave that up to you on if you want to cook the filling ahead of time or have the raw filling and cook it in the oven. So it really doesn't matter. The flavor is going to be the same. It's just the texture is going to be different. Okay, and that is I'm going to kind of leave that up to you. But if you kind of see kind of what it looks like, what we need to do is we need to get a cabbage leaf, and kind of like, do you remember how we did what was it, banana leaf to make it very pliable and soft. We heated up that banana leaf so where on the stove top, so where it would be pliable and malleable and easy to work with, and it doesn't break. We need to do the exact same kind of thing with this cabbage. But what we're going to do is we're going to take that cabbage and we're going to blanch it in salted boiling water. So you're going to, when you get your cabbage, you need to be careful. What I usually do is I kind of core the bottom of the cabbage out and start removing the bigger outside leaves. And that's kind of what we want, is the bigger outside leaves, because it's kind of large. And you typically will have a really like thick kind of core, or a thick root end. So you sometimes need to kind of cut that little stem end, or trim that stem just a little bit, and you have a flat kind of cabbage, and you need to blanch that in salted boiling water. It needs to be boiling and it needs to be salted. And you blanch it in there, let it sit for a couple of seconds, or so like 30 seconds, give or take, until whatever the thickness it is, you want it to soften enough so where then you can kind of then I usually will stick it in ice water to kind of stop it, and then kind of shake it off or dry it off. And then I put in the filling, and then I kind of roll it up. If it's raw or if it's cooked filling, no matter what, you roll it up and you kind of fold it up like something like this. You want it nice and has a nice appearance. You want to make sure that it's a nice tight roll. But that's kind of what we're doing. Now let's go to the recipe. You have long grain rice needs to be cooked. Okay, needs to be cooked. That needs to be cooked. So no matter what, that rice, so I would suggest either tomorrow making some rice and just kind of cooling it and letting it sit for the next day. Sometimes it's a little more of a pain in the butt to try to cook the rice the day of, because all we have that day, right, is cabbage rolls. You've got your noodles, and then the strudel. Well, the strudel dough is already going to be made. And to do the cabbage rolls, you need to have already cooked rice. So my suggestion would be maybe cook that rice ahead of time, maybe the day before or right before class or something. I would go ahead, cook some rice. What I'm going to probably do is I'm going to get my people on ground tomorrow to cook some rice ahead of time, so where then when they come in, they can just go ahead and kind of combine everything and put everything together. But you have cooked rice, you have ground pork, you have fennel seed, you have caraway seed, you have chili flakes, you have paprika, and you have salt and pepper. Now, this is 80-20, it says ground pork 80-20. That means 80% meat, 20% fat. You need a little bit of fattiness to it, but that's ground pork 80-20, give or take. But you have, that's the filling. So I'm going to leave that up to you on if you want to cook it or not. I'll kind of describe how to do it both ways. If you're going to do the uncooked filling, you're going to get a bowl. I usually put in my pork first, my raw pork into a bowl. I'll have my fennel seed. I usually do not leave it whole. I will toast the fennel seed and caraway seed. I'll toast it in a saute pan, but I'll get it like a mortar and pestle, or get a kind of a spice grinder and just kind of pulse. So so where it's not, I don't have big seeds, but I've got kind of little, it's smaller, so where it doesn't stick in people's teeth as much and all of that sort of stuff. So I kind of pulse it, and so I've got my pork in a bowl. I've got my, I'm going to put in a little bit of fennel, a little caraway, a little chili flake, paprika, some salt and some pepper, and I will then put in my rice. And I kind of mix it all up. And then if it's raw, you need to be able to, you need to taste it, right? So what I usually do is I'll take a little bit, patty it up, or put it in like a little patty or something, and get a saute pan, get a little oil in it, and kind of cook a little side, a little piece of it, so where I can taste it to make sure it tastes good. Because again, you don't want to roll the dice and you know, oh yeah, I seasoned it right, and then you have a lot of people sending it back because it's unseasoned or it tastes bad or whatever else. So you know, once you find out it's seasoned properly, then you can roll it up in your cabbage roll. Okay, now if you were going to do the cooked method, what I will do is I will get I'll get my pork in there. I'll cook, get a saute pan. I'll get my pork in there, start cooking my pork, kind of breaking it up so where it's kind of like ground beef in a way, or kind of taco meat type of deal. Then I'll put in, while I'm cooking it, I'll throw in my fennel, my caraway seed, my red pepper flakes, my paprika, my salt and pepper, and then I'll put in my rice, toss that around. Then I taste it. It's already cooked, so I taste it and make sure it's seasoned properly. Once that's done, then I can take it. I can let it sit and cool for a minute. Take it, put it in the center of the cabbage, roll it up, fold the sides, and put seam side down. But that is the two different ways on making the cabbage rolls, with doing it raw or cooked, one of the two. Now the tomato sauce is a very basic tomato sauce. We're in Germany. This is kind of a Eastern European, German area, whatever else. You know, and we're not doing like a tomato, like a Italian tomato sauce. This is more just a very basic tomato sauce. It's just got whole tomatoes, whole canned peeled tomatoes, some yellow onions, some garlic. And you know, if we have any like a little bit of herbage, you can put a little bit of herbage in there if you'd like, but it's a very basic tomato sauce. What I will do is I'll get my onions, sweat my onions, bam, bam, bam. Then I'll throw in my garlic, put in my tomatoes, and I kind of cook that down a little bit and kind of mash it up and just kind of make a you know, it should just be kind of a very basic tomato. And you add salt and pepper. Obviously, there's no seasoning, but you need to make sure it tastes good. Then what you're going to do is in a pie tin, or in I usually do it in a pie tin. But I will get put a little of that tomato on the bottom of that pie tin. Then I'll put my cabbage rolls on top of that, and then maybe nappe a little bit of that tomato sauce on top of that cabbage roll. And then I will bake it, put it in the oven and bake it until until it reaches internal temp of 165. Especially no matter what, if it's raw or if it's reheating, you need to reheat to 165 and you need to cook it to 165. So no matter what, it needs to be cooked. The internal temp of that cabbage roll has to be in 165 degrees. But any questions on that right there? Right. Now the tomato sauce says you can use, it's got onions in there, onions and garlic, right? So If you want to add a little onions and garlic to this filling as well, you can add some onions and garlic to the filling. I usually will have maybe cook off some onions and some garlic, and I mix the onions and garlic in with my product for my stuffing. But any questions on that? I think I heard someone was going to unmute themselves or something.
It was me. Is there, I know that you said that the flavor profiles are the same either way, it's just texture. Is there a way that you prefer to make?
I really, for me, I don't have, I'm kind of indifferent on it. The only thing that I think sometimes it has a nicer appearance when you cut into the cabbage roll, if it's cooked from the raw state, if it's kind of like more of a sausage style, because it just has it just has a cleaner look. So when you cut it, it's not as kind of falling apart on you. But I've honestly, I've done it both different ways when I'm teaching here. So, I just kind of, whatever floats my boat on that morning, or whatever I kind of want to do. But I don't have, one is not better than the other. It's just looks a little different. So I would leave that up to your judgment.
Okay, heard. Thank you, Chef.
Of course. So any questions on the cabbage roll or the strudel? The egg noodles, excuse me, you have all-purpose flour, and you have egg, and you have semolina. Now, if you do not, and I don't know if we gotta give you semolina or whatever else. If you don't want to use semolina, you can use 200 grams of just all-purpose flour. Is totally fine by me. I'm good with either or. I think the reason why they put 100 grams of semolina, because the semolina is kind of yellowish, or has more of a egg yolky look to it, or kind of a egg pasta look. So if I can easily, if we don't have it weighed out, I can give the people that are online, I can measure out 100 grams of semolina or a little bit more, and give y'all some of that if you want some semolina. I'm okay with either or, but you're just going to use, you're going to make a pasta. And if you've never, have y'all used semolina in making pasta before?
Yes, Chef.
All right. The only thing that I would say is, if you're using semolina, you need to make sure you slowly hydrate that really well. You get that hydrated. If not, it's the semolina could tend to be very kind of grainy in your pasta, and very bumpy looking. So just make sure you really knead that pasta really well. But then we're gonna cut it in fettuccine style. Excuse me, style. You're gonna just roll it out. I would say, no matter whatever your pasta thickness is, it will double in its size. So I would say the thinner the better. Roll it out as thin as possible, then dust it really well, let it sit and dry. I usually will dust it with a little flour, let it sit and dry out for a few minutes, and then I roll it up, and then I'll cut strips of julienne strips out of it, and then that will look like fettuccine noodles. Okay, and then you're gonna need to have salted boiling water. So you're just going to have salted boiling water going. You're gonna drop in your pasta, toss, or let it cook, right? Now on the side, now this is important. I don't saute my pasta, but I use a saute pan as a device to toss my pasta in. You could use a kind of a mixing bowl would be fine. I don't care, but once your pasta is done, I usually have a saute pan with some melted butter. I usually have it sitting on a pilot light, a saute pan with some butter so where it'll melt. Okay, so when my pasta is done, I take it out of that water. I throw it into a saute pan that the saute pan is not on. I'm not trying to fry it or saute anything. I'm just using it so where when I take it out of the water, I put it in there. I have my butter in there because if I don't have the butter on that, my salt and pepper and my parsley is not going to stick. So I usually throw my pasta in there with a little bit of butter, salt, little pepper, and finely chopped parsley, and I toss. And I use that bowl or saute pan as a tossing thing. The reason why I don't want to, I want to toss it in there instead of use tongs, because if I use tongs, I'm going to start to break up my pasta noodles, and I don't want my noodles to be broken. I want them long and nice and all of that. So I use a saute pan or a bowl to kind of toss it in and to make sure that the butter and the salt and the pepper get coated really well and the parsley gets coated. And then if you have a carving fork, what I usually do is a carving fork, you've got, two tines, you stick into the pasta, you twirl it around, and you can pull it up and you can put that pasta right on the plate with a nice little height to it. And it's nice buttery pasta with some parsley on there. And then I've got my cabbage roll, with my sauce kind of off to the side, on it right there. And then I've got my apple strudel onto the side. Any questions on that? And if you're at home, you have vanilla ice cream. Vanilla ice cream would go really well with that. Cinnamon ice cream would go well with this. Let's see, like caramel sauce. If you have caramel sauce, any of that sort of stuff, that would go really well with this as well. So whipped cream, making chantilly cream, putting it on there. The only problem with chantilly cream or something that is cold, usually the strudel is nice and warm. And if you put something, especially chantilly cream or like fresh whipped cream, it starts to make it all watery and nasty because the product is so hot. So just manage that. Any questions about Eastern European, Germany area? All right, let's reconvene and let's say 8 o'clock. Y'all want 8 o'clock? That's, let's see, what's that?
Sounds good.
All right, so be back here at 8 o'clock. I'll see you in 8. All right, it is 8 o'clock, or actually 8:01 by my phone, but it says it's 7:59 on my computer. Weird. All right, so let's see. So this will be Thursday. You have tomato bread, roasted pork loin, smoked tomato, and roasted red pepper coulis. We are not doing the sofrito. We don't need the sofrito anymore because it was for a different dish. So we are not doing the sofrito, but we're doing the basically the tortilla español. That is basically a kind of looks like a in my mind is drawing blank. What is
Kind of like a quiche.
thank you, quiche, yes. So it's potato and egg and all of that, and it's going to have actually kind of a Spanish chorizo in it, an air dried Spanish chorizo in it. So that's kind of what the menu is. Now this is kind of a busier day, you know. So the tomato bread takes a little bit of time because it is so such a heavy bread. It takes a while for it to ferment, the first fermentation. And the proofing doesn't take as long, but the first fermentation does, just because of it just the what's in there. It just needs a little longer time. But let me show you what that looks like. Tomato bread, here you go. It kind of looks like this, like a loaf, a really red loaf. Now, my suggestion to every single one of you is not do it in a big old loaf like this. My suggestion is doing it in making rolls or making small loaves. So I will you know what, let me make a note to myself. Actually, y'all hold on one sec. I'm gonna get the small loaf pans so I won't forget them. Hold on one sec. Let me go grab them real quick. All right, but my suggestion is small loaf pans are do like rolls or something where it takes less time. But this is kind of, you know, sometimes you'll see this tomato bread, something like that. You put in some fresh tomatoes on top of that, put a little bit of mozzarella, toast it, and it could be like a tomato bread with cheese and all of that. But this is kind of what the tomato bread looks like. It would look, oops, I didn't mean to click on that, but anyway, it kind of looks like this. So let's go over the recipe. You have yeast, water, tomato juice. The reason why it takes so long, a lot of times people will not, or like you know, especially with y'all at home, the tomato, what I will box up the tomato juice in the box. Well, what happens is you put that box in the fridge or whatever else, and you put cold tomato juice in this. It takes a very long time for that tomato juice to kind of warm up, and it just kind of takes a while for that proofing to our fermentation to happen. So make sure at least I want that tomato juice at least room temp, or you need to heat it up just a little bit. What I usually do is I will put the tomato juice and the water together, combine it both. And then if I'm at home, I will microwave it. If I'm not at home, a lot of times I will put, you know, the tomato juice and the water in a pot and just turn it on and let it kind of come up for a minute and just let it sit and cool. I just do not want it cold because it's going to take a long time for the fermentation to happen. Then you have Parmesan grated, you have sugar, you have butter, you have salt, you have basil, you have oregano, and you have flour. And I would suggest going exactly like this recipe says. Dissolve the yeast in warm water. You know, add your tomato juice. I usually will dissolve the yeast in the tomato juice and water, but the most important thing is you don't want it over, like you need to check the temp. You do not want it hotter than 110. If you have it hotter than 110, it's going to start to kill the yeast, and dead yeast doesn't really work very well. So then you're going to add your cheese, your butter, your sugar, your salt, your herbs. You're going to mix until it's nice and smooth. If you have a mixer, like a mixer, you need to use a dough hook. No paddle, no whip. You need a dough hook if you're going to do it that way, and you need to make it until it's nice and smooth, elastic. I would say at least 5 to 10 minutes. You know, I would say 5 minutes at least in a mixer, 10 minutes by hand, give or take. You're going to put it in a spray a pan with pans, or a bowl with pan spray. You're going to put plastic wrap on top, and you're going to stick it somewhere nice and warm, so where it'll double in its size. It says place in for an hour. Sometimes it takes a while, so you know you need to jump on that pretty fast to get that going. You're gonna then punch it down. Then you're gonna shape it into loaves or into rolls or into whatever floats your boat. You're gonna bake it at 375 degrees. It says, you know, for 20 to 30 minutes. You know, you want it nice and done on the inside. The internal temp should read 200 degrees inside of that bread. The only problem with this is if you cut this when it's kind of warm, it will make it kind of gummy like. And make sure when you cut it, you use a serrated knife, not a chef's knife or not just a plain knife. You need to use a serrated knife and not press down. You want to saw it. So that is it on the bread. Any questions on the bread? All right.
Wait, I'm sorry, I have one. Do you want us to cut it in half?
Let's see. Cut the recipe in half?
Yeah, it just said at the top that it makes 2 loaves, so I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, you
Just
could cut it.
recipe
You could cut it. I mean, if you would like to cut it in half, that's totally fine.
Okay.
Yeah. the only problem is, you know, just trying to measure out the yeast and all of that might be a little bit difficult.
Well, I have a scale, so I just usually, when it says stuff
Okay,
like
yeah, as long as you have a scale, you'll be good to go. All right, cool. Yeah, no problem. Just cut it down for sure if you want to.
okay, perfect.
Yeah. Now the pork loin. The pork loin. Now, let me get a picture of a pork loin for you. For the people that do not know. Okay, here is a pork loin right here. Okay, pork loin is, and you can see it comes from, if I'm a pig and if I'm on all fours, it's right on like my back area. So this meat is very tender, but it doesn't have much fat to it. Okay, so if you overcook pork, it gets very, very chewy and tough, especially when there's not much fat to it. Now, there is typically a what I call silver skin or fat that's on top. So sometimes, let me just see if I can just get a picture of plain old pork loin. Here we go. So, you know, here's a pork loin right here. You kind of clean it up and you can see, hold on, I'm trying to get you a picture. Oops, bad. Come here. All right, here. All right, so typically a pork loin has this fat on top of it. Depending on what you're doing with it, you know, depends on how much you take off. But for this, we can take off, you know, the fat is fine, and you can leave some of the fat on. I mean, you just don't want any of the silver skin or the elastin, but you want to kind of trim this up a little bit. Then you're going to season with, oops, let me get back to it, salt and pepper. And you're going to season with salt and pepper. You're going to get a pan, or let's see, dry off the pork with paper towel. You're going to season with salt and pepper. You're going to sear the sides. So you need a saute pan or a pan, a big enough pan to put that meat in. You're going to make sure that pan is very hot with some fat in it. You know, I think I've got leftover lard sitting in my cooler. I might use some lard or Crisco or canola oil or some sort of fat. You're going to season up your meat. You're going to go whatever the show side is. Usually the show side is the fat side. So this side is kind of where the show side is going to be. So the show side goes down first. So, you know, because the pan is at the hottest at that point. So you're going to get a nice sear to it, nice golden brown. You flip it over, get it nice and golden brown. I even usually hit the sides. I might stand it up and hit the corner and hit the corner. Sometimes depending on what it is, sometimes I don't do the sides of it, but you want to sear the whole thing. Then what I would do, and it says, you know, sear it till nice and golden brown. You're going to transfer it to an oven and you're going to cook it into the internal temperature reads around 135. And this says for transfer to a 400-degree oven. Yeah, you know, 400 is fine, you know, and you're going to cook it until it reads around 135 to 140 internal. So somewhere in that area, you're going to let it sit and rest. Very, very important to let it sit rest, because with it being not too fatty, because fat equals moisture and palate feel and all of that. Well, with it not being fatty, if you overcook it, it's going to be very dry and it's going to be very chewy. So you want to make sure you don't overcook it. So please watch around 135 to 140 internal. Then you're going to let it sit and rest. Then you're going to slice it and you're going to fan it out, and that is it. Any questions on the pork? And you can see kind of the roasted pork, and it should have what I call this is called rosé, and I don't know if you can see that pinkish color right there. That is what you call rosé. Rosé is kind of pinkish. It is not raw, but it is rosé, and that's right around 140 or 135 to 140 internal temp. Okay. Now, the reason why we can cook now, if you, I'm going to talk about trichinosis. Trichinosis used to be in pigs. Trichinosis was is a parasite that bores holes in your brain. Actually, it's almost like mad cow disease, but in pigs in a way. It would bore holes in the brain and all of that, and it was if a human eats it, same kind of deal. It is probably one of the worst ways to die, because the parasite is eating your brain basically, but prior to in 1970, in the 70s, trichinosis was eradicated because it was in pork. And the reason why it was in pork is because we fed slop to pigs. We would feed them uncooked stuff, cooked stuff, all this slop, and it was just kind of all thrown in, and it wasn't all, and so what we do now is we pasteurize all of the food we give the pigs. If it's slop or whatever else, we heat it up to a certain temp, and it kills any parasite or anything like that. Now, back in the days, even my parents, they do not want to eat any pork that has got any sort of pink, kind of like this, or that picture I showed you right there. Even though it's pink, they still have it's a bad thought of trichinosis and all of that. Well, there has not been a case of trichinosis in pork since like the 70s. So it's not in pork anymore, but it's hard to get those individuals, the baby boomer generation, to accept it. But that's why a lot of times pork, if you go if my mom cooks a pork chop, it's like rock hard, because she's just used to doing it that way prior to 1970, right? Or in the 60s, it kind of changed, late 60s, but 70s is when it started getting mainstream and all of that. But just make sure you do not overcook it, because overcooked pork is just very chewy, dry, not so appealing. Okay. Questions about the pork? Can I move on? All right. All right. Now we've got it's called smoked tomato and roasted red bell pepper. Well, I would drop the smoked tomato and just kind of, it's really not a smoked tomato. What the smokiness comes from, we use smoked paprika, and that's where the smokiness comes from. It's not like a smoked, we don't smoke the tomato or anything like that, but the smokiness comes from the paprika, and that's why we use the canned tomatoes, but that smokiness comes from the paprika. So anyway, we've got ingredients: olive oil, red bell pepper, garlic, yellow onion, paprika smoked, sherry vinegar, easy on the sherry vinegar. Be very easy on it. Sherry vinegar is very strong, so be very careful with that. You have canned diced tomatoes, bay leaf, salt, and pepper. So you're gonna you first of all you need to roast your pepper. You need to roast the pepper and seed it and peel it and seed it. So my suggestion, there's two ways of doing it, and let me show you pictures. Okay, so here is some pictures of a roasted or some tomato, or I'm sorry, not tomato, but red pepper coulis. Now, if you see this lighter one right here, that is oven roasted. So they roasted the bell pepper in the oven, and they did it that way. So where it's not as dark. If you oven roast the tomato or the bell pepper, it's a little lighter. If you fire roast it, it's going to be a little darker, and it's going to have a darker kind of tint to it. I don't care which way you do it, fire roast it or oven roast it, but no matter what, it needs to be roasted. It needs to be peeled. No peeling needs to be on there, and no seeds. If that is important to do that. Let's see. So after that, you're going to use this says using the pork pan. A lot of times a lot of times you want to make the sauce before the pork is done, right? So what you can do, it says use the pork pan, roasting pan to kind of do it all. If you want to make it ahead of time, and I'm going to make it ahead of time, what I'm going to do is when I fabricate my piece of pork, right, I need to clean it up, and I've got a little fat, I've got a little this, I got a little that. What I usually do is I will, in a saute pan, cook some of that meat and fat and silver skin and kind of any meat that I had to fabricate or clean up. I kind of saute that really quickly in a saute pan, so I get some good flavor to it. Then I take that, get rid of that scrap meat because I don't need it. Then I can use that pan and I can add olive oil. And if I have enough fat coming from that grease from the fat that I took off, I could use that instead of olive oil. But I'm going to saute some onions, some garlic, and then I'm going to add my peppers, my roasted pepper in there. I'm going to add my paprika. I'm going to dust in my paprika. I'm going to hit it after I kind of cook that down. Then I'm going to hit my vinegar in there. It's going to deglaze. I want that to reduce down to almost nothing. I want to reduce that vinegar down to almost nothing, because if you don't reduce it down too far or enough, it's just going to be too strong and too vinegary. So you reduce it. It says reduce by half, but I actually like to reduce it just a little bit more than half. Then I'll add my tomatoes with the juice. You're going to let it simmer. You're going to then you're going to take it. You're going to it says use a bay leaf for about 2 to 3 minutes. Okay, now the problem, and this is a problem I have with bay leaves. Bay leaves takes about 30 minutes, 30 minutes to an hour for a bay leaf to hydrate back and to get flavor out of it. Unless you were using a fresh bay leaf, it's almost useless to put in if you're not going to let it sit for about 30 minutes to an hour, simmering. If it's not going to sit there, you're not really going to get much flavor out of the bay leaf. So if you have fresh bay leaves, that you can get some flavor, but if not, I would suggest just not even putting it in there, because you're not going to get any flavor out of it, because it's going to take a while for the bay leaf to hydrate back and to get flavor out of it. So that's my little soapbox on the bay leaf. And then you're going to puree it. You're going to put it in a blender or put it in a food processor, or if you don't have any of those, I would let it sit and kind of cool a little bit, and you just chop the hell out of it with your a chef's knife, and just kind of just do the best you can to just kind of chop it up as fine as possible. And it says pass through a chamois, because you don't want any big chunks or any of that sort of stuff. If you have like a hand mixer or a hand blender, you can do that, puree it and push it through a chamois. You probably don't have a chamois at home or a strainer. You don't have to strain it at home. It's just not going to be as smooth. Wherever my picture, excuse me, it's not going to be as smooth. It'll be a little chunkier, if you don't strain it. All right. Let's see. And then you need to adjust the seasonings, and that's it. And this is going to be served with the pork. But what I don't want you to do is put the sauce right on. If you see this piece of pork, right? Let's look at this one right here. I don't want you to put the red pepper coulis like it is on here. Like, I don't want you pouring it on top of it, because it's just going to look ugly. What you're going to do is you're going to put the sauce on the red pepper coulis on the bottom of the plate, and then you can kind of fan it out that way, or put the red pepper coulis on the side and serve it on the side. Because what happens is the red pepper coulis it'll look, after it sits for a minute, it's going to look like blood or kind of nastiness, or it's just going to look ugly on that piece of pork. Any questions on that? Is that my car? That's not my car. All right. Any questions on the piece of pork? All right. So we did the tomato bread, the pork, the roasted pepper coulis, and we're going to talk about the tortilla. So this is what the tortilla española is. It's basically kind of like a quiche, kind of like you cook it in a saute pan. Typically, most of the time you cook it in a saute pan, and you kind of dump it out. So that's kind of what it looks like. Let's get back to the recipe. All right, now, if you go by this recipe, it should work. So you got chorizo, you got a kind of a Spanish style chorizo. You have olive oil, you have potatoes, you have Spanish onion. Spanish onion is just it's kind of a sweeter onion, but you can use just a yellow onion. Egg, and let's see, and salt and pepper. So in a let's see, heat a 12-inch skillet over low heat. Trim the ends of the chorizo, make a slit down the side. So you're gonna kind of take the casing off. Important to take the casing off. You're going to cut the chorizo in half lengthwise. You're going to slice it cross sections. You want little pieces. You're going to trim You're going to heat it up. Now, when you cook this chorizo, there is going to be a lot of red fat that comes out. It's because this chorizo is air dried, and so it hasn't been cooked. So when you cook it, it's got a lot of paprika in it, and it's going to look. If you've ever seen menudo, the soup, not the group menudo, but the soup. I don't know if you've ever seen like a red kind of greasiness on top of the soup of menudo. That's kind of what that grease is going to look like. So you're going to kind of cook that, and you need to manage how much fat you have. I would suggest, because it's going to ooze out a lot of fat, you're going to take out some of it. You're going to turn down the heat or turn the heat up to high. You're going to add olive oil. If you know, a little bit, you're going to add a little bit of olive oil, you know, depending on how much fat you have from your chorizo, sorry. You're going to add your potatoes. You're going to, you know, cook it in there, and your potatoes here, you know, look at the size of those potatoes. You don't want them too small. You don't want them too big either, because if they're too small, they turn into mashed potatoes. If they're too big, they turn into, or they're just raw on the inside. So like this one looks like it's bigger chunks. This one looks like little slices. So somewhere in that area, right? So you're gonna add your potatoes. You're gonna reduce the heat. You're gonna cook, let the potatoes kind of cook thoroughly. Now, if you're stirring this or moving it around too much or whatever else, you're gonna break up those potatoes, right? You don't want them all mushy and all of that. So just manage that. You know, don't move it as much, and don't just stir it just to stir it, right? And then you're going to remove from the heat. You're going to transfer the cooked potatoes into a bowl with the chorizo. You're going to drain the oil. You're going to heat. You're going to wipe it down. You're going to let's see. You're going to add a little more oil. You'll add your onions. Kind of cook them. You want to lightly brown them. A little caramelization is totally fine. That adds a little sweetness. Then you're going to beat the eggs, you know, on a separate bowl. You're going to beat up the eggs, or kind of scramble the eggs, and make sure you get salt and pepper in there. Then you're going to toss the chorizo and the potatoes into the bowl. With everything. You're going to mix the onions with it. You're going to pour everything back into the saute pan. You're going to then you're going to kind of cook it on the stove top, and then I finish it in the oven. And you just kind of and you kind of let it just kind of finish cooking. Then then we're just going to pop it out. So when you pop it out, I would suggest getting a you know, rubber spatula, the high temp rubber spat, or a cake spatula or something, and kind of go around the edge before you pump it out. And then you're just going to kind of cut a little pie square out of it, and that's kind of, or a little, not square, but a pie shape out of it, and then you're going to serve it just like that. Questions, problems, or concerns about the this dish? We good? All right. And we are not doing the sofrito. We are not doing that, so you do not need to do that. So we are doing the tomato bread, the roasted pork loin, the coulis, and the basically the espanol, the torta. It's kind of like a quiche or whatever you want to call it, torta, if you will. Questions, problems, concerns? Are we good? All right, let's take a 10-minute break. What's 10 minutes from now? Let's say 8, or yeah, 8:45. Or let's say, yeah, 8:45. Come back at 8:45 and we'll do the last day. Alrighty. Let's get back to it. So let me. Hold on. Why am I not? Yeah. All right. So now we are on day 15, France. We are going to be doing a mushroom and leek tart, salad niçoise, and a baguette. Now let's talk about the tart. Well, first of all, we are making pie dough on what day? Hold on, let me. I think tomorrow, right? Hold on.
Yeah, tomorrow, Chef.
Okay, so please save some of your pie dough for Friday. So use some of that pie dough for your empanadas, okay? Empanadas, pie dough. And then you're gonna save some of your pie dough to make a mushroom tart. Okay, you're gonna use the rest of your pie dough to do that. Let me grab one thing before I forget. Hold on one second. In your boxes today, hold on, let me get to my computer. All right, so in your boxes today, I will have these little mini little pie tins. I don't know if you can see it, but these little mini pie tins right here. This is what you're gonna do your little tarts in, okay? So I will have these little pie tins waiting for you or in your box, but that's what we're gonna be doing that. So you need to save your some of your pie dough. So you're going to make some pie dough for your empanadas for tomorrow. So please make sure you wrap up the pie dough so where you can put it in these little tart shell tart pans for Friday. All right. So we have the mushroom and leek tart. You got salad niçoise. The name, the salad comes from the niçoise olives. There are niçoise olives in there. To be called niçoise, it's got to have niçoise olives. And then you've got your baguette bread. So let's kind of go over the recipes for that. Hold on. All right. So for your mushroom tart and leek tart, you have butter. It says clarified. I'm okay with just plain old butter. Let's see, leeks, garlic, mushrooms, salt, pepper, Gruyere, thyme, basil, cream, the pate brisée. That is basically pie dough or the dough, but you're not gonna be making any pie dough or any pate brisée. You're gonna have already made it on Tuesday that you're gonna use some of it for. So make sure that you save some of that pie dough, because if not, you will not have a crust for this. You have Parmesan cheese and egg wash as needed. So you're going to heat up some butter in a large skillet. You're going to add the leeks. You're going to garlic, mushrooms, and saute. Guys, I don't know. I mean, can everybody see this pan? Can people see the pan?
Yes, chef.
Okay, so here's my AirPod case. So, kind of to give you a kind of a shape or the size of it. Okay, with that being said, so you can see how small this tart pan is. So that means your leeks need to be small, your garlic needs to be ultra fine, your mushrooms need to be finely, sliced or chopped up, or something, so where it all fits in really nicely with this. So make sure that it's not this big old pan. If you had this big pan, you could have bigger chunks and all of that. So just make sure you cut things accordingly to the size of the device you're going to be putting it in. All right, so you're going to add your garlic, your mushrooms, and you're going to saute. Now, I do it a little different. I get some fat, a small amount of fat, and I cook my mushrooms first. I like to get some color on my mushrooms. And, in mushroom, and also remember, mushrooms will suck up the fat and then spit it back out later. So what happens is it will suck up all of that grease and all that butter, and then later on, as you bake it, it's going to ooze back out. So manage how much fat you use. So what I do is I heat up some butter, melt it, then I put in my mushrooms, brown those a little bit, saute, and then I'll throw in my leeks, then I'll throw in my garlic. I usually put my garlic in later because I don't want to brown my garlic. And I want to make sure everything's cooked. So I get that. You're going to add some salt and some pepper. You're going to add your herbs in there, whatever herbs you want. Then you're going to add some cream, the heavy cream. You're going to bring it up to a boil. You're going to reduce it down, and it's going to get really thick, and it's going to kind of get thick. You're going to adjust the seasoning. You're going to let it sit and cool for a few minutes. You're going to mix in Gruyere cheese. You want to do this when it's cool, because Gruyere cheese, if you when you put it in there, and if the Gruyere cheese kind of melts, it tends to get kind of greasy. So what I usually do is I'll just kind of mix it in, and it'll kind of melt up, but you want to just manage it. Please don't like I would maybe not put the 12 ounces of Gruyere in there. Maybe put a little bit less, because Gruyere is a very fatty cheese. And if you have too much of that and it doesn't bind up well, it's just going to be really a greasy product. So just make sure you manage that accordingly, okay? You just mix it in there, and mix in the Gruyere. You're going to roll out the pate brisée. That's your pie dough, right? You're going to roll out your pie dough, and you're going to first of all, you need to spray your pan down, or get a little oil or something and spray it down, and then you're going to roll it out, and you want it no more than 1/4 of an inch thick, and you want it just a little bit larger than this size right here. Why? Because you want it a little bit bigger, so where then you can make a little edges around the sides, so where you have a little room to kind of make it edge. And then plus you want it a little bit bigger, because it does kind of shrink up a little bit, and if it shrinks up too much, it's gonna you're not going to have any sides of your pie dough. So you just kind of crimp the sides, and then let's see what else. Then you basically, I will egg wash everything, and then put the mixture inside, and then put it in the oven, and kind of egg wash the edges, around the edges, and then bake it until done. The pie dough is nice and brown and looks done, and then the mixture is kind of solid and all of that, or not solid, but kind of oozy. And you'll kind of see it. Then you kind of remove it, and there you have it. And this is going to be individual ones. But that is it for the mushroom and leek tart. I will show you the picture one more time. You know, this is kind of what it kind of looks like, give or take. But that's kind of so your mushrooms need to be not like this, right? If you're making a big tart, it would be like this. But if you're doing smaller tarts, make sure your mushrooms are cut up and your leeks are cut up a proper size. Questions, problems, concerns about the mushroom and leek tart? Just remember, you need to reserve some of that pie dough from tomorrow to this day. Okay, that's so important, because if not, you're going to have to make more pie dough, and that's just going to take a lot longer. All right, so we have salad niçoise. Niçoise, this salad is very time consuming, okay, because it's got a lot of components in it. Okay, I'll show you what it looks like. Here we go. Here's kind of a niçoise salad. It's kind of like I would say like a chef salad in a way, where everything is kind of in grids. You've got a grid of, you know, like a chef salad. You have, you know, I don't know, your meats here, you know, kind of in a grid area. A niçoise salad is something similar to this. It's just all in a grid. It's got a little everything kind of set up right here, and then when they're ready, you just kind of toss it all together, and that's it. So typically it always has niçoise olives, so black olives. It typically has a hard-boiled egg. It has green beans in it. It typically has tomatoes in it, and potatoes as well. Kind of red potatoes that are blanched off. And then you have, sometimes you will have like, this has canned, like this is canned tuna. Sometimes you will have like a fresh tuna loin that's seared, but it usually has tuna in it. But we're, I think, going to be using canned tuna for us. But that is kind of what a niçoise looks like. So like those green beans need to be blanched off and shocked already, and be, you know, have that done before the salad gets done. Your potatoes need to be cooked in boiling salted water until done, and kind of cooled off. So, and then your hard-boiled eggs, you need to hard boil them. You want to make sure that they're not, you don't overcook them, so where they have that grayish or dark color, because that dark color or grayish, if you overcook it gets very kind of sulfurish smelling. So you need to manage that. And your tomatoes, you just need to, you know, you want them all, you want everything about the same kind of size. So the size, you need to cut your tomatoes. If you get big tomatoes, you need to cut them down smaller, or whatever else. But you know, you need everything kind of the same size. So let's go to the niçoise. Okay, so here's niçoise. You have red wine vinegar, you have salt, olive oil. So the red wine vinegar and the olive oil and the salt and pepper, that is to make a vinaigrette. That's a vinaigrette right there. So you can make a quick little vinaigrette. You know, I usually put just a skosh or a little bit of mustard, if you have any yellow mustard or Dijon mustard, or, you know, I like to put a little bit of mustard in when I make that vinaigrette, because it helps bind it up a little bit more. But you also have basil leaves, chiffonade, or whatever, however you want to cut the basil. You have chicory. Chicory is, if you don't have chicory, and I don't, the people that are buying their product, you know, just I would say if you want to just get like a mixed greens, like a mixed green salad, that's fine. But you know, chicory is more of a spicier lettuce, if you will. Then you have tomatoes, you have cucumbers, green beans, hard-boiled eggs, artichoke. I don't know if we are doing artichokes or not. I think we might not do the artichokes anymore. Roma tomatoes, bell peppers, fresh tuna, or if it's canned tuna is fine. I think we use canned tuna. Niçoise olives, got to have Niçoise olives to be called Niçoise salad. And then potatoes. The potatoes, you need to cut them, cool them, or cut them, cook them, and cool them. Okay, so that needs to be done ahead of time. Your green beans need to be, you need salted boiling water, and you need to blanch them, and you need to shock them. And that needs to be done ahead of time. And then your hard-boiled eggs also need to be cooked, shocked, and peeled and cut. Okay, so let's see. You're just going to be basically cut up everything, put the romaine lettuce down at the bottom of your bowl or your platter. Usually it's done, you know, it's sometimes done on a platter, something like this, or in a very large bowl. You know, then you're going to put your romaine down at the bottom. You need to make sure you cut it and make sure you rinse it. And then you put, you know, you have your romaine down. Then you have your, you know, like your green beans, all your stuff kind of laid out, kind of positioned all right there, very displayed very nicely. And then you are going to have your vinaigrette, and you're just going to have your vinaigrette off to the side, because usually this is done, you know, people kind of will toss it all together and then do it, or individually kind of make an individual salad, something like this, and then kind of pour the dressing on top, or the vinaigrette on top. Any questions on the Niçoise salad? It's pretty straightforward. It's just time consuming, because you've got to hard boil the eggs, you've got to cook your potatoes, you've got to cook your green beans, you've got to kind of get everything set up. Then you just kind of put it all together. Any questions on the Niçoise salad? Okay, I'm assuming by your silence we're good, so I'm okay with that. All right, and the very last thing is a baguette. Okay, and I want everybody to make the baguette for sure. Baguettes, I mean, this is a very something classical. This is something, if you go out of culinary school not knowing how to make a baguette, I have not, or we, or whatever culinary school it is, and if it's this school, we did not do our job properly. You have to know how to make a baguette. That's just something I can't stress enough. You need, it's a basic thing that you need to know how to do. Now, there are two different styles of baguette. You have a French style baguette, and you have a American style baguette. American style baguettes typically are rounded at the end, something like this picture or this picture right here. French baguettes typically are pointed at the end. I don't know if you see how it's kind of got a little point to it, or this one has a little point to it, or rounded, or not as rounded, it's more pointed. we are going to be in France, so let's try to make sure when we are doing our baguette on that day to make sure that we do more of a pointed end instead of a rounded end. And very important to do these little slices right here. These slices right here, and do you see how it's kind of at an angle, right? It's not straight, going straight. It's more at an angle, and it's a wide slice. And it typically baguettes usually have 4 to 5, I would say, slices to it. But this helps prevent your bread from blowing out at the back side or the back part of it. But you need to, we're going to form it and we're going to shape it. And so, you know, the baguette recipe, I mean, it's a very simple recipe. It's 21 ounces of water, 2 teaspoons of yeast, 32 ounces of flour, bread flour, and 4 teaspoons of salt. That's it. You know, I usually dissolve my flour, or I'm sorry, my yeast with my water. So I have my water, my warm water sitting in my mixing bowl. I mix in my yeast, let it sit for a second. Then I dump in my flour. Then I don't put in my salt yet. I dump in my flour and I start kneading it or working it. If you're doing it by hand, you know, you're just going to have to work it. And once it starts to kind of ball up a little bit, then that's when I put in my salt. The reason why I like to put in my salt just a little bit after I kind of get the flour mixed in just a little bit, because the salt will kill the yeast. So if you don't, if it gets, that salt gets directly onto that yeast, it could easily kill that yeast. So I like to kind of get that mixing, and then I put in my salt. And then I kind of mix it until it's nice, you know, and you want to mix it until you get a window, you know, window test. It pulls out, you know, you can stretch it out really nicely. Then you're going to let it sit. You're going to let it ferment. First fermentation, it's going to double in its size. Then you're going to take it out. You're going to punch it down. You're going to probably cut it in 2 different pieces, and you're going to make two baguettes. You're going to, I usually flatten it out and then kind of roll it up and kind of seal the sides, and then just start kind of rolling it from the middle out, and then using my palms of my hands to kind of roll that little kind of tip to make it a little more of a pointed end instead of a rounded end. Then you're going to then let that sit, and then it's going to proof. And when you proof it, you don't want to overproof it, because if it overproofs, the yeast is gonna eat all the inside, and then it's gonna kind of be hollow and then fall down. But you also, before you stick it in the oven, you need to slice it. Get those slices, then you're gonna stick it in the oven. And I usually will get a squirt bottle. If you have a squirt bottle at home, right when I put my bread into the oven, I squirt it with a little bit of water inside the oven. Then I close it, and then I will kind of cook it with that, and that helps create that nice crust to it. And you want to make sure bread is done. The internal temp is around 200 degrees. So you can stick a thermometer. I would do it from the back end or the butt side or the ugly side. And, you know, you just want to check the internal temp and make sure it is done. and then you take it out, bada bing, bada boom, she's done. Any questions on the baguette? And here's the baguette right here. You want it nice and golden brown and crispy. Also, another thing is to prevent it from getting kind of ashy color, ashiness, just avoid a lot of the flour when you're forming it. Try to avoid a lot of flour that's on your station. Less flour, the less ashy or the less white it would be. It'll you want a nice golden brown to it. But again, this had flour on it, and you can see how you have flour on the outside, but on the rest of it, you don't have as much flour. But it should be nice and crispy. It should tear up the roof of your mouth. The crunchiness should have that really hard crust on the outside. But typically, if you don't have a good bread oven, sometimes you will not get that good crisp, that good crust that you normally see with a baguette. So are there any questions, problems, concerns, issues that you have about any of the productions for this week? Make sure that you save your pie dough. The pie dough, a little extra for Friday. And let's see, what else? Let's see. I think that should be, I mean, that's pretty much it. Any questions, any problems, any concerns about anything for this coming up week?
I just had a quick question, Chef. Are we supposed to make the pie dough early today, or is that just the strudel?
I'm sorry. Well, I said if you would like to make the pie dough today, you can, because what happens is if you make the pie dough, and the people that are going to be in class tomorrow are going to have to make the pie dough. I just only suggested that for the at-home cooking people, just because of sometimes if you try to make your pie dough and you don't let it sit and cool enough, the butter starts to melt, and your empanadas tend to kind of start to be crumbly and not solid. So and I found out that a lot of, sometimes when you're making your pie dough, your home refrigerators take a while for it to cool down a little bit more than our big refrigerators that we have here. So sometimes that butter melts too much, or the butter's too hot, and it starts to kind of not be such good structure. So that's kind of why I said, if you would like to make the pie dough today for tomorrow, that would be probably, your product would be better if you made it today and you cooked it tomorrow. So if you would like to make it today, please do so. I don't expect you to, because my guys that are going to be on ground are not going to make it until tomorrow. But it was just because I've seen people have problems with their home refrigerator not cooling it down fast enough. If it's too warm, please put it in the freezer if you don't make it ahead of time. But that's it.
Okay, thank you, Chef.
You're welcome. Any other questions? All right, well, then that'll be it. This video, I'm going to stop the video right now.